Hello and welcome back to Speculative Dude Presents. I'm your host, Speculative Dude. Now, today again we're continuing our series on racing movies with a movie simply titled Street Racer. Yeah, it's kind of a generic title, but it fits. I suppose it was thinking about it. It's probably hard to come up with titles that sound engaging but aren't rehashes. So I do like the box. The box, it's very amusing. The subtitle, "At 130 miles an hour, you're never more alive or closer to dead." It's very, very amusing considering trust me, there's no car in this movie that does 130 miles an hour. Oh, they could, but they don't. And the even better part, based on true events. All I can say is I hope the true events weren't as riddled with cliches as this movie is. Now, this is an amusing. I guess you could call it a guilty pleasure because it's not really a good movie, but I can't bring myself to hate it, despite the fact that it's actually made by Asylum Pictures. And anybody who knows Asylum, they're the ones that are known for, they're big, over the top. They're best known for their big, over the top sci-fi spectacles. Sharknado, Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, those kinds. You know, uh, so this movie is actually extremely subtle. Watching it, I would never have guessed that it was Asylum, except when I actually read the back of the cover. I was like, I was like, all right, this is very interesting. And one thing I will say, if you pick up the box, don't buy it based off the box art because none of the cars you see on the cover or the back are actually in the movie. On the front, you see a Mustang GT Racing Skyline, or I should say a Nissan GTR 35. Sorry, they dropped the moniker of Skyline. So, GTR 35 versus a Mustang GT. On the back, you have a Scion TC and a Lancia Delta. Neither one is actually in. None of these cars are actually in this movie. Though you do at one point see a Skyline GTR 33. Interestingly enough, for people who don't know, a lot of people complain that there are no Skylines. No, in the mid to late '90s, there was a short time where a company had an agreement with the importation services to import some Skyline 33s. However, it was also discovered that they were trying to import 32s and 34s, which were not on the agreement, and they were shut down. So there actually are a few 33s in the U.S. legally. And now that the 25-year waiting period has passed, the early R32s are starting to be legalized to come here. So, we'll eventually start seeing more of them. But remember, this is 2008, and you didn't see these very often. And, what's the movie about? As I said, this thing's about as riddled with cliches as you can get. A guy, down on his luck, he just gets out of prison for making a mistake. He crashes his car in a street race. He causes a young boy and a father to get injured, because of his stupidity. Gets out of jail. Wants to have a straight, clean life. Doesn't want to go back on those. But he has a corrupt parole officer, I guess, or his corrupt parole officer, thinks, well, if this guy's a street racer, I can make money off of him, so he wants to, mind you, this is the only police officer you see in the entire movie. It's one problem with this movie is that its lack of budget really shows. Sometimes, it doesn't, it's not so obvious, but here it really shows. There's not a lot of stunt work, so that's not necessary. There's no ridiculous over-the-top CGI. There's one crash early on in the movie that shows the accident that he got into that he was sent to prison for. That was done well. In fact, if you actually watch the special features, they'll show how it was done. Admittedly, they admit in the special features that they used a different car for the crash scene and hoped that no one would notice it. I find it amusing that the makers would admit that, but I suppose honesty is good. He gets out. He wants to try and make a clean break in his life, and his corrupt parole officer says, "No, you're going to go back and you're going to make me money." It's like, oh well, that's just terrific. he gets a job at a it looks like a salvage yard, honestly, but say it's a mechanic shop, but it's just a junk shop with a that has some mechanic bays in front. But he goes there, makes friends with one of the other employees, goes out, gets into an argument with some of the other guys that he used to race with. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention his name is Johnny Wayne. So yeah, there is a joke. Interesting enough, right at the beginning, where the parole officer kind of makes fun of him for his name, and then after that, it's pretty much dropped. They just call him Johnny for the rest of the movie. He runs into the guy who actually he was racing at the time of the crash, who just ended up leaving him there, Mickey Stiles. And at first I didn't like the way his character was played, but then I realized he was supposed to be over the top. The only downside is he's supposed to be the top street racer, and that's fine. But there's nothing really that he does to show that he's the top street racer, other than you knew that he was in a race way back when, and at the very end of the movie he's in another race. There's nothing really to show why why the people around him respect him, and everybody around him seems to be kind of cliche. There's only one black guy in the entire movie, and he's kind of, he's a thug stereotype, and it's like, really? There's one female racer, and she's kind of a bimbo. It's like, oh, come on, people. You can do better than this. But through all these things. Oh, and he is required to do community service, and it just so happens that he does community service at a physical therapy clinic where the young man who he injured, the boy that he injured in the crash, is taking his physical therapy and trying to learn to walk again. But they don't know who he is, or at least the boy and his sister don't know who he is. So, it's understandable that the boy does, despite the fact that he was in a car accident, the boy still has interest in cars, so they sort of bond a little bit over that. And he learns rather early on that that he's the one who injured them, but he keeps his mouth shut. And of course, later in the movie, they find out that he was the one who, he was in the crash, which leads to one of the three characters, I should say, that don't act well. The one thing I will say that's a redeeming factor about this movie is the acting is actually done pretty well, despite the cliched script. And I think that may be why I can't bring myself to hate it, is that most of the people are really good. There's three people who don't do that well. There's the ghetto thug guy, but he only has a few lines. There's the female racer who acts, like I said, acts like a bimbo. But at least those characters, they acted well as those characters. It was just poor writing. There's one character, unfortunately, and luckily he's only in a couple of shots, that just apparently couldn't act to save his life, and that was the character of the father of the young boy, who was also supposedly injured here, but they never really explain any reason why. What's up with the dad exactly? And so the dad, the acting that he does is, when he balls the guy out, he recognizes him as the guy who caused the accident, balls the guy out, and his acting is just horrendous in that moment. And that honestly almost, not only does it kind of ruin that scene, it almost ruins the rest of the movie. Even though he's only in, just like I said, he's in the beginning, you see him, in the car crash, and then you see him there. That almost ruins the rest of the movie for me. It was so bad. But, after that, towards the beginning of the movie, when he started working at the mechanic shop, he doesn't have a car, so the cop says, well, you better find one. So he borrows the boss's car, and luckily here's the only point where they have any tech talk in the movie, and it's very subtle and it's believable, so I don't really have a problem with it. And that's that the other mechanic there says that he swapped out, I think the car that he has is a 325 or 318 BMW 318i. I'm not 100% on that. It's mid to late 90s model. But he says that he swapped out the engine from a BMW 525. It's a bigger engine, more horsepower. Not actually unbelievable, and he doesn't go into description. So it's like, oh yeah, I swapped out the engine from engine and transmission from this model over here. It's like, oh, okay, that actually, the way he says it, it's like, okay, that's actually believable. So, like I said, only one line of tech talk in the movie, and it's actually decent. Borrows the car, or wins a drag race. In winning that drag race, he braces for pink slip so he can get his own car. Then returns the car to the boss. Of course, the boss is mad. Fires him. It's understandable. He just took his car without permission. Then also doesn't he also doesn't really want to explain to the boss why he took it. Later the boss is shown to be much more understanding. But despite being the stereotype gruff old man boss, he actually becomes the mentor figure. Like I said, full of cliches. But the biggest issue I have with this movie is actually the racing, because it's not done particularly well. And when I say not done particularly well, it's not that the racing itself isn't shown well, though the camera angles aren't that great. The biggest problem is the cars. If you look at cars that are known for street racing, most of them aren't that hard to come by, and can be found. Even some of them can be found at a fairly cheap price. And even if you're not really going to soup a car up for a drag race scene in a movie, every race except for the very last race of the movie is a drag race. I should explain that. So, any car that you're going to dress up just for a drag race, you can dress it up to look as if it's, even if you're not really going for it. Take a look at the first Fast and the Furious movie. The Eclipse that he's driving is supposed to be a GSX Eclipse, which is the all-wheel drive turbo version. It was the closest thing we got in America to the Lancer Evo before it came over here in 2003. Good solid car. But for most of the stunt work and most of the driving, used an Eclipse RS or GS, which is naturally aspirated. Obviously no intercooler. So they obviously for cheaper production value, but they dressed it up to look the same as the GSX. Here they didn't do that. You can get a cheaper car and make it look better. I have a friend who has just a baseline Subaru Impreza. I think it's like an 06 or an 07. We to film a strip one time, we dressed it up to look like a WRX. Put a different hood on it with a scoop. Give it a little fin. Made it look like a WRX. It wasn't, but you can do appearances. Here they don't do that. Here, the closest you get is that little bit of talk about the BMW being, having an upgraded engine in there, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. But the car that he's racing is a Scion XB. Anybody who knows anything about Scion XBs know that is not a car you race. I don't have anything against the cars personally, though I'm not the biggest fan of the boxy look. But and it's not even a new Scion XB. It's like an early 2000s model. The one that was extremely squared. Had a 1.5 liter automatic transmission. This thing only had 107 horsepower. And none of these cars that are shown early on are shown to be souped up. In fact, you don't even know if the cars later in the movie are souped up, even though they're better. And it's like, okay, you're gonna take a BMW with the 525 or 535 engine, and race a Scion XB in a drag race. Yeah, anybody who didn't bet on the BMW is an idiot. It's just one of those. It's like certain things in racing movies are just insulting, and that's when you use a car that's really, really not or shouldn't be in that position. Scions are good, or they're great cars for, or at least the XB is a great car for dressing up. There are tons of aftermarket parts for style on this car. Granted, there are some for performance as well. But it's not a race car. You can get it a little bit zippy, but it's not a car that you're going to take out that you're going to take out and win street races in. It just isn't. And big problems. That's a big problem with this movie. Well, of course, naturally, he beats it in the BMW, takes the BMW back to the boss, and gives it back. The boss catches him returning it, and like I said, gets pissed off. He sends him packing. Oh, well, he's got the new car though. He won the XB. So the next day, the cop tells him, okay, well, here's your next race. Well, he's supposed to be racing the Scion XB against a Honda 2000 or S2000. It's like, they say what? Wow, that's now granted the 2000 is a solid platform, but it's better known for its handling. But at the same time, no matter how you look at it, it completely outclasses the XB in a drag race. Even if the S2000's even if it's more designed for its handling prowess and track performance than it is just a straight line run, it's not too, not exactly, it's not exactly lacking, especially against an XB. Of course he loses it, which means he loses the car again. He does the whole thing of going to do some soul searching, decides to, what he's going to do, comes clean to the boss, tells him what happens. The boss says, all right, hey, I'm going to help you out. This is also the other point where I had to raise an eyebrow at cars, because boss says, all right, we're gonna take you, and we're gonna find you a car. So they go looking through the junkyard, and he sees an old Impreza, that's been scrapped. He says, all right, that's the car you're gonna use. You're gonna build yourself a car. And I don't actually have a problem with that. The thing that I raise an eyebrow at is that they try not to get you a good look at the car before it's, when it's just, because essentially all it is a frame. There's no engine, no transmission in there, and you can even tell that from the shot they're showing. But they try and raise it so you can't really see the headlights, but you can see just enough of it to know that what he's working on is an 02 to 03 Bug Eyes WRX. I know, I own one. It's I've got an 03 Bug Eyes, and what he comes out with is a 2006-2007 STI model, and it's like, no, that's not. It's like, that's a different car. So I get that. I get that. He's building it, but at the same time, it's like, no, you're not fooling anyone with that. I know you tried to fool them with the camera angle, but it didn't work. So, also, apparently when it's all said and done, it has tons of sponsor stickers and all this, which tells me that they probably borrowed, a track vehicle, designed specifically for it, and that's fine. I don't really have a problem with them borrowing, track vehicles from experienced track racers. But like I said, when the starting car is a different car than what you finish with, that's no. The other thing is the car he's going up against is it's an R33 Skyline. Anybody who knows that, it's a pretty good car. I know it didn't have nearly the fanfare that the R32 or the R34 had, but it's no matter how you look at it, it's still a great car, and it was, again, the only Skyline that we got over here in America. That being said, of course he wins the race. Oh, and I forgot, before he has the race, he's the cop, of course, threatens him and says, I can make a lot more money if you lose, so you better lose the race. Of course, so you have to throw that into it. Like I said, every cliche you can think of is really thrown into here. Right down to him falling in love with the young boy, who's in the accident, his older sister. That's in here too. And of course, as soon as they find out who he is, they push him away, and then later they accept him back, and like I said, riddled with cliches. If this really was based on true events, then I hope the true events weren't as riddled with cliches as this was. The corrupt parole officer gets his comeuppance when running across the street to basically shoot Johnny for doing that. He gets hit by two other cars that are racing. It's like, I know I probably shouldn't be laughing at that, but it's like, wow. You guys really did hit that cliche, too. Of course, he takes the money that he wins in the race and, gives it to the kid so he can keep, having his therapy, and, and everyone lives happily ever after. It's just, it's really a mindless movie, and if you don't think about it, it might be okay. Like I said, I can't bring myself to hate it because, like I said, as I said, with the exception of the father's acting and then the two stereotype characters, the acting is actually not bad. Like I said, Mickey, the guy playing Mickey Styles, he's kind of over the top, but at the same time, in a way, it's understandable because he's just flat out arrogant. I've met people in real life that are so ridiculously arrogant. I know some people have said, I would almost compare him in over-the-topness to, if you remember the Martin Kreese, the karate instructor from the first Karate Kid movie. Well, I guess he was in the third one as well, but he was so over-the-top, and I would almost compare Mickey to him in how over-the-top the character is. But it's one of those, you're not supposed to like this guy. You're supposed to hate him. And it's like, okay, I get that. So, and I'll be honest, considering the movie's from Asylum, this is probably one of the few Asylum movies that I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I would say, wow, that actually wasn't completely horrendous, Is it cliched riddled? Yes, very much so. Yeah, is the box art a complete lie? Oh yeah, there's I also love this, a nitro fueled ride in the tradition of Fast and Furious. It's like whatever people may think of Fast and Furious, it's 10 times better than this. But like I said, because the passion of the actors is in there, I can't say that it's absolutely irredeemable. I'd say, if you have absolutely nothing else to watch, I couldn't say don't watch it, which is far more than I could say for the movie that I'll be ending this series on. But it's I know it might sound like I'm trying to justify my like, but like I said, it really is honestly a guilty pleasure. I can't really, other than the acting, explain why I like this movie, but I definitely don't hate it like a lot of movies I might. So, that's this week's review. Coming up next week, I'll actually be taking a break from the racing movies again, and I'll be taking a look at Transformers: Age of Extinction, and we'll see how that goes. So until next time, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Speculative Dude, out.